While her movie career was brief, the world remains dazzled by the unmistakable allure of Jayne Mansfield. In 1967, the world lost her at the young age of 34.
If you're any good at geography, you'll recognize Jayne Mansfield. And you'll recognize her car as a 1906 Gregoire, if you don't care about geography. Jayne, for excellent reasons, which you can probably see for yourself, has been stealing the picture at the Cannes Film Festival. The muscular gentleman with her, oh, well, that's her husband. Jayne visited the late Aga Khan's widow at her villa. Wearing an outstandingly attractive swimsuit, she decided on a plunge into the pool. Well, plunging in this case is not quite her line, perhaps. Still, it's a new angle on Miss Mansfield, and the famous film star's quite as buoyant as you'd expect.
Jayne Mansfield always wanted to be a movie star. Even her first marriage in Dallas, while still a teenager, didn't slow her down.
You know, even when we would just be together in public, I don't care whether we were having a soda at the drugstore or what, she was the center of attention.
Ironically, for this future film star, when her big break came, it was on the stage.
Jayne became famous doing a Broadway play called Will Success Spoil Rock Hunter. It was originally written for me by a young playwright named George Axelrod, and I turned the role down like a dummy, and Jayne took it and became a star.
Mansfield's Broadway debut coincided with another famous blonde's arrival in New York. Marilyn Monroe had abandoned Hollywood to study at Lee Strasberg's Actors Studio.
When Marilyn left 20th Century Fox, they said, well, we'll show her, and they said there's this hot blonde in a play in New York, we'll bring her in. So they brought Jayne in, and they were trying to create like a Super Monroe to lure Marilyn back. For a brief period while Marilyn was gone, she was it in this town. I mean, she showed up at all the premieres, and she was very glamorous, and her second husband, the muscle man, Mickey Hargitay, would carry her in and make quite a spectacle. I mean, she lived the life to the hilt.
Mansfield was the ideal 50s star. Like the cars of the era, she flared out in all the right places. But her Hollywood career was about to come to an unexpected halt.
Once Marilyn came back from the Actors Studio with Bus Stop, and it was a really huge hit, it was awkward for them to have the two blondes on the same lot, so immediately Jayne was shipped overseas to Europe, and all the rest of her films were done in Europe until about 1964, when she came back to do films here, and at that point Marilyn had died.
Undaunted, Mansfield used her banishment overseas to join Bob Hope's famous USO tours.
She was something, and I'll never forget in Japan, she came out in a dress that showed all of her. And we had an NBC guy with us that said, they'll never get away with that. Never get away with that. Because the kids just went crazy. When she would show up, I said, why didn't I buy Kodak stock? You know, because every camera in the place was going zing, 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 zing. And she had this thing where she put her hands in the back and gave it this as though she had to. She came along at the right time for these kids overseas, I'll tell you that. They just loved her.
In 1963, Mansfield became the first major American actress to do a nude scene. The controversy helped make the film a hit and earned her a place in the box office top 10. But in subsequent years, her career stalled after she had a child and while she dealt with a troubled third marriage. Then, on June 29, 1967, Jayne Mansfield was killed in a car accident. She was just 34.
And I was shattered by her tragedy. I mean, I never really quite got over Jayne. Marilyn, she had so many problems, you know, always trying to commit suicide, and she had so many problems that you sort of maybe expected maybe that would happen, but you never thought it would. But with Jayne, it was more of a tragedy.
The last time I saw her, it was sad. I kissed her goodbye in Acapulco, and she was with her attorney, and the next day she was killed.